Hello all. So in this video, we will see how to save our vehicle from floods. So for the past few days, mainly in Chennai, right? So you have heard about the major flood and cyclone that has happened. So many of the vehicles got flooded, and it will be a tedious process when we go for an insurance claim and all. So when the flood comes, we have to understand what are the components that gets affected in our car, and what are the things that we should not do, and how can we prevent our car from getting flooded, and also what is the eligibility for insurance claims. So if we are aware of all these things, we can save a lot. Okay, so first thing is how we can prevent our car from flood. So first thing is, before our car gets flooded, right, we obviously know that our area is going to be flooded, because everywhere they announce, in TV, newspaper, whatever you see, right, even in social medias, everywhere they clearly mention this much of rain we are going to get in the next 2 days. In such case, when we are actually aware of, right, and also we are aware of our area where water will be logging, so in such cases, first try to place your car in some nearby bridge, or place it in some high-rise area in your area. And third thing is, if you know that the water level will not go beyond this point, in such cases, you can use some concrete blocks. The reason why I'm saying is, usually the car will be staying like this. But if you have some concrete blocks placed in the front wheel, right, what happens is your car will be in this slanting position. I believe some people who actually face this situation can easily understand. If you place this, right, your car will be in standing position. So even if water comes, it won't cross, it won't go beyond the engine point. So in such case, we can save the engine. Okay, so this is one way of prevention. And we do have some more methods, like in case if the car is going to get flooded, we know that tomorrow it will be flooded and I can't take my car at this point of time. What can I do? So for that, I will say separately in the next slide. So assume that our car has got stuck in flood. Okay, in some cases it will be only till tire level. In that case, we are safe. And there will be some cases where the water will be to this level. Even in this case, right, we have some prevention methods. With that, we can save to some extent. But if it's fully submerged, we still have an option to save, but not fully, but to some extent. So we will see them one by one. And in case if your car is completely submerged and you haven't kept any prevention method prior, in that case, we have to understand what are the components that may get affected. So in car, we can split into three major components. So one is electrical, second one is mechanical, and third one we can mention sensors. But still, sensor falls under electrical, but still I'm mentioning separately. Okay, so in electrical, two major components are alternator and ECU. So these two are the costliest components. That's why I'm writing here. Apart from that, we have many electrical components present inside the car, but those are negligible. Okay, because to some extent there will be no necessity to replace them. We can maximum try to reuse them. Okay, and when it comes to mechanical, we have suspension. So how many days we have the car is standing inside the flood, that's the thing majorly affects the mechanical components. Okay, so if it's more than 2 days, for sure the suspension will be gone, then steering rack and some wear and tear components like brake pad, horns, so those things. Okay, all these things will be affected. And apart from that, I mentioned sensor, right? So we have multiple sensors in our car, like MAP sensor, MAF sensor, O2 sensor, and many more. But the thing is, sensors can be, if we dry them properly, they can be used to some extent. I'm not sure, I'm not saying all the time, but to some extent, if we dry them, for sure they will work. Okay, so these are the major components, and this itself will cost a lot. And the main thing we have is engine, but I will say some methods how to prevent the engine from flood. Okay, and now we assume that our car is completely flooded, and tomorrow the flood has gone. So what I have to do to my car is, don't do anything. That's what you should do to your car. Okay, don't do anything. Just call RSA, tow your vehicle, claim insurance. Okay, so these are 2 steps that you have to do. And also to mention, in case if you are keen to do something, don't put key. If you put key, it's completely gone. So even insurance cannot help you, because if you put key, electrical supply may pass on, it may do some short circuit, and if you even try to start, engine components are completely gone and insurance will completely reject your claim. Okay, that's why I say don't do anything, that's safe. Okay, and next thing is insurance eligibility. So when we put insurance, right, we would have, many of us would have seen and many might have not seen, there will be one add-on called engine cover, or sometimes it may be called as engine protect. Only if you have enabled this checkbox, right, only then the engine components are covered, else insurance will clearly reject that they cannot cover the engine components. So ensure to enable this checkbox while you put your new insurance, because engine is the most costliest component when it comes to repair. 1.5 to 5 lakh depending on the car's size, and this I am saying for the regular car that we are using, but for luxury cars it may still extend. Okay, next we will see how we can prevent our car from flooding to some extent. Okay, for that we have to understand what are the components in car and what are the components that we have to protect, mainly with respect to engine. Okay, so let me show some of the major components. The arrow is already mentioned here, so I'll just underline. So we have battery, we have engine, and we have exhaust. So we'll keep the, and we have fuel tank too. We'll consider these parts alone to safeguard the engine mainly. Okay, so before that, this is the engine. So when I say engine is completely closed, but still it has some way through which water can enter inside the engine. Okay, so in order to understand that, we should know what are the components that can enter into engine and what are the components that can come out of engine. Only then, I mean, those are the ways through which water can enter into the engine. So for that we have to understand what the basic engine is. I'm not going to go much deeper, but I'll just cover the major components. So what are the things that can enter into the engine are air, fuel. And then we have one more component, spark plug. So an important one. And something that comes out is exhaust. And apart from that, we'll be having something over here called dipstick, oil dipstick. So these are the components through which anything can enter inside the engine. Okay, so if we cover all these things, then we can be 80% to 90% we can be sure that water will not enter into the engine. I can't say 100%, but at least to 80 to 90%. Okay, so let's see from the easiest one. So first, the exhaust. So we have the exhaust here, right? Exhaust pipe. So at this tip, just cover it with a plastic cover very tightly. Use some rope, use some rubber band, whatever it is, but ensure that you make it tight so that nothing can go inside the engine through this way. So this whole path we are safeguarding. Okay, that's one thing. Second, the easiest thing is oil dipstick. So oil dipstick, we can just cover it with plastic cover as we cover for the exhaust. So with that, we can save water entering into the engine. And third thing we have is spark plug. So spark plug will be mounted here. We can't do anything to spark plug, but spark plug usually will be very tight. So water may not enter through spark plug, but still it's always good to check. I mean, after the flood has been drained, right? At the time, the mechanic may check. So if some water has entered through spark plug, but from our side we can't do anything. So I'll just mention a tick over here. Next thing we have is fuel. So all the vehicles manufactured, right, all has a fuel injection system right now. We don't have carburetor system, so everything is a fuel injection system. So in that case, only if we switch on the ignition, fuel will come from this and enter into engine. But if you don't switch on the engine, I mean, if you don't put the key, we can disconnect this line. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to disconnect the battery's negative terminal. With that, no fuel is going to come into the engine. Okay, so with this I can save fuel entering into the engine, and this way is completely saved. But for sure water will enter into fuel tank, because it has some hoses or in some way water easily enters into the fuel tank, but we can restrict its flow into the engine. And the next part we have is air. So air comes through the air filter. So here will be an air filter, and it will have some pipe which will be somewhere near the bonnet. Okay, so this end, right, we have to cover it with the plastic paper, and also this air filter, if we cover plastic paper, right, I mean we have to seal it very well. If we seal it, we are done with all the ways on how to prevent water entering into the engine. Mechanical parts and wear and tear parts, it will be surely gone. Those things you can cover under insurance, and those things even after claim, you may maximum pay to 5 to 20k max. With that you can have your car saved, but only if engine gets affected, it will be a huge amount. So these things we are going to cover, right? So I will show this in a live demo on how to do that in our car.
As you can see, so this is the exhaust outlet. So we are going to cover this tightly with a plastic cover. You can use rubber band and also threads to cover it completely. The next thing is, this is oil dipstick, this is air filter, and if you backtrack the air filter, you can see one opening over here, that is the breather one. So we have to close this. Okay, so this again we will cover with a plastic cover nicely. So these are the ways through which water can enter into the engine. So cover this completely. So, and followed by that, as you can see, this one is the air filter box. Just remove them. Usually for some cars it will be clip type, some cars it will have some screws, but it is easy to remove. Just keep a plastic cover over here and stick it with Fevi-Stick for a safer side, because we can't tie this anywhere, but we can use Fevi-Stick if possible, or if you have a bigger rubber band, at least you can use that and close it tight. Okay, and followed by this, the dipstick. So dipstick, it will not have any gaps over there, but it's always safer to cover it tightly with a plastic cover. It's that easy. And followed by that, we have to remove the battery's negative terminal. If possible, remove both the terminals and keep the battery inside your home, but that's much safer. But if not, you can just remove the negative terminal and keep it. There is no possibilities of shock, there is nothing to worry. You can remove it with a 10 mm spanner, usually 10 mm, sometimes 12 mm. And after flood, just check the dipstick if the dipstick has only oil or oil with mixed with water. That you can see very easily with the level of viscosity. So if you pull this dipstick, and if you see if there is only oil, it will be little viscous. If there is water, you can see droplets. That is when you place a strip like this, the water gets dripping down. That's very easy to find. In that case, you can understand that water has gone inside your engine. Also the air filter that we have seen previously, right? If you remove that cover and see if the air filter is wet, it means that engine has gone, I mean water has gone into engine. But in both cases, don't do anything, just call a mechanic, so they will take care of everything. So this is a really flood affected car, before which they have tied up with the cover of the silencer, and also they have removed the battery's negative terminal. And this car has not drowned a lot, but up to steering level water came in. So but since they have done these precautions, the expense is going to be bit lesser. But they have forgot to cover the air filter box, but luckily water didn't come up to this level. So that's it guys, with this we'll close this video. Thank you all for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe.